Hello. Yeah, so I'm back, and in this video I am going to do a connection with Delta Lake. So this kind of really goes into the load part of ETL. So when we start exporting data, so far what I've shown you is how to import data, how to transform it. So now we're going to do the final part. So once you've done your transformation, you want to export it into different formats. So it's going to be quite simple to do it as, CSV, JSON, the usual kind of formats that you might want to work with. But then there is something called parquet or parquet, and we're going to go down that route. So parquet is really kind of like a more sort of newer type of format, and it's a format for Apache, and it comes from Databricks. So Databricks, Databricks. So Databricks are the ones who created Spark, and they've also created Delta Lake. So Delta Lake is really kind of optimized, helps you optimize your data lake. So you've got data lake, you've got Delta Lake, and data lake helps you optimize your data lake. And it uses a parquet format. And in order to start using Delta Lake, so this is a library, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a connection, and I've also decided, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and shorten my videos. So I'm not going to try and do the really long 5-hour, 2-hour kind of videos. I want to start uploading more regularly, and I think if I do sort of shorter videos, like snippets of specific bits, then that's going to be a lot easier for me. So I'm going to focus on the connection bit, and then I'll do another video, hopefully during this week, at more sort of regular interviews on the next steps, and then that will kind of be a lot easier. And the other thing I was going to say is, I probably sound a bit weird because it's summertime right now, and I really suffer from hay fever. So I probably sound a bit stuffed. I might sniffle a little bit. I'm always making weird noises, and when you start making videos, you don't anticipate certain things like your phone going off. Like my phone goes off all the time, and I've put it on silent. The doorbell will ring. What else? There could be a noise outside that gets picked up by the mic. What else? My stomach rumbling when I get hungry. But that's if I do like a really long video. I haven't eaten breakfast, so that's all right. So all of that stuff, I'm trying to be as professional as I can. And then you might hear me being not so professional because I am relatively new to doing videos. But yeah, I hope this is enjoyable and fun for you as it is for me. I love doing this. Love communicating like this and sharing the knowledge. All right, so let's get on. And what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is update my version of Spark. So in order to make sure that Delta Lake is working, I'm going to make sure I update Spark so that way I get the most up-to-date and compatible version of Spark, which is going to connect with Delta Lake. So so let's do that. And if you want a more sort of detailed kind of explanation of how to install Spark, you can refer back to one of my earlier videos. I think it's my first video where I did an installation of Apache Spark. So I'm currently on 3.0.1. So let's just do a Spark shell. Get that running. And what we're going to update to is the latest version, which I believe is 3.1.2. So let's, while that's running, let's just get the browser open. Oh, my stomach's rumbling right now. I'm not hungry, but it's just rumbling. Alright, so let's go to Spark download. And we'll go to this link. So the latest one is 3.1.2. So I've got 3.0.1. And I'll just come out of that. And so we're just going to do an update. The update is going to be easy. And what I'm going to do everything by the command line. I mean, I could just click on that and put it into my folder, but I prefer to do things by the command line. So the destination where I'm going to put it is going to be, if I go to other locations, computer, where's user? Okay, there it is. User, local. So it's going to be in here. And the reason why I like to do things sort of manually rather than using sort of apt sudo apt install is because I've got more control over how things are being installed. If I do things manually, then I know I'm putting it into a specific folder, I'm pointing to a specific version, I can have multiple versions, all that sort of stuff. Just makes it a lot more easier when you do things manually. So I'm going to put it in this location. So the current version I've got is 3.0.1, which correlates with what I've got here. Alright, so in this command line, let's just clear that. I'm going to do a so I've already got the folder, Spark folder, so I don't need to create that. But if you wanted to create it, you just create that folder. But follow my older tutorial, and you can, I think that's a good way. If you're installing Spark from the start, just follow that. Alright, so I'm going to do a wget, and the address, if I just click on download Spark, what it's going to do is it's going to take me to a Miro. So I can just click on the first one. So if I say copy link address, alright, and I can do a wget, and then I can copy that address, and then the location where I want to put it in is going to be tmp, my temp folder. And I don't really need to put this flag, which is -p. That just means that if the folder is not created, then just is not there, then just create it. But the temp folder is a default folder, and you might want to put it, for example, if you're not putting it in your temp, you're going to put it somewhere else, download it somewhere else, and you've got like a succession of folders, like subfolders, and they don't exist, and you just want to automatically create those. So then you would do that. Alright, so I can just do that, press enter, and it's going to start downloading it to my temp folder. So just give that a little bit, and that will download. So I also think this is quite a big update, because on the last version that we had, you had Hadoop 2.7, and then now you've got Hadoop 3.2. So there's been a quite an update to Hadoop, I think, to 3.2. Okay, here we go. And so this particular file, what I want to do, I want to decompress that, and I want to decompress it into this location. So I'm just going to do this command, which will be a sudo tar xv zf, and it's going to be that file, and it's going to go to user local Spark. Okay, and I'm using sudo because this is a protected folder. If I was decompressing it, uncompressing it into, let's say, my home folder, desktop, whatever, right? I wouldn't need to specify sudo rights in order to do that. But because it's going into local, which is a permission protected directory, then I will need to specify sudo for that to work. So I can just now decompress that, and then it will now go into this particular folder. Alright, so that's now done. Now the next thing I need to do is just clear this. I need to sort out my path. So I need to configure my path to point to this particular version of Spark, because right now it's pointing to this one. Alright, and you know, to follow all of that from the beginning, you can just follow my earlier tutorial, but you'll see me do it right now. Alright, so now I need to do a sudo vim, oh sorry, I beg your pardon, sudo vim dot bash rc. So this is where I do my configurations, where I'm pointing, where I'm specifying my environments, my environment paths. But you could do it somewhere else, like profile or whatever. But I just do it in my .bash rc. It just makes it a lot easier for me. And this is where I'm referencing my folder for Spark. You can see I've got loads of other things down here, and this is stuff that I've gone through earlier in my other tutorials. But this bit here is really what we're looking at, the Spark path, and this as well. This is important, you know, to have PySpark configured. So this is the version that I want, and okay, I was going to do a copy, a rename, then copy that folder. But because it's protected, I can't do that. So I just have to manually type it, and I cleared everything that was above, so I can't copy it from up there. So that's 1.2, and Hadoop is 3.2. Just double check that. 3.1.2, Hadoop 3.2. Yeah, that's cool. So just do a write and then a quit, and then I just need to do a reload of this bash rc. So I'll do source.bash rc, and then I'll want to do that on my other tabs as well. So because I can either just close the other tabs or just do that. Alright, so let's just check that. So if I do a echo spark home, and then you can see it's now set to 3.1.2. Yeah, so that's all done, and that's how easy that is, right? So that's why I like to do things manually, just a lot more simplified and easy. Might seem a little bit long-winded, but you know, as you do it over time, then you realize the benefit of doing things manually and just understanding exactly what's going on and how you can just quickly change something. When things are being done automatically for you, it's hidden, you can't see it, and when something goes wrong, you know, it's hard to understand why it's gone wrong if things are hidden from you. But the more you know, the easier it is to do things yourself. Alright, so that's now done, and now we can do a Spark shell. And you can see the output has changed in the terminal because previously what I did, I updated my logging in Spark, and in my Spark directory, which was, if I can remember, conf. This one, I created this particular file and I did some updates to it, but because I now am running on this version of Spark, then this is completely new and that file doesn't exist. I'll need to recreate it and then set again one more time my logging preferences, and that will get rid of all of this output. But for now I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm currently on version 3.1.2, which is good. It's all working. Alright, so what's the next thing that I need to do? I need to install what is called Delta Spark. So because I'm using Python to communicate with Spark, I have to have all the libraries. So one of the libraries is going to have to be Delta Spark. And you're going to do a sudo pip3 install Delta Spark. Now, before I do that, yeah, all right, let's just leave that there. Before I do that, let's just do a pip3 freeze to list all the libraries in my pip package manager, and you can see that I've got PySpark driver 3.0.1. So the PySpark driver is something that you need to communicate with Spark. What I'm loading here is a different library, but when I install Delta Spark, it's gonna automatically update to the latest version of my PySpark, right? So if it doesn't update, then I'll have to update it to 3.1.2 because the version has to be compatible. The driver has to be compatible with the version of Spark. Otherwise, it won't work. So let's do that, and I believe it will do that update automatically, which is here. So downloading PySpark 3.1.2. Okay. So just give that a little bit and let that install. I might blow my nose in a bit, so yeah, you might hear me make a loud noise with my nose. So by installing Delta Lake, it also installs PySpark 3.0.1, so that's good. Alright, what else do we need to do? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to completely jump into my code, and alright, so let me go to desktop. So this is where I keep my code. Just clear this and clear this tab. I'm just going to throw my folder in there, and I can go into classes. So I need to update my connection. So there are several ways in which you can do a connection to Spark, right? So when you're passing in configurations, because this is what we're now going to do, right? I'm going to update my Spark session to include a configuration for Delta Lake, and there's several ways in which you can specify your configuration. You can either do it when you create a session, when you do a builder, which is here, or you can do it when you do Spark submit. So Spark submit, like if we just if I go to Spark submit, which is user local Spark, and then you've got jars. So within jars, I think it's in here. Spark All right, it's probably it's somewhere else. I can't remember where it is, but we'll get to it. But Spark Submit, it's an application, and within the command line you can put all of your configurations, and that's how people normally do it, because they'll write a cron, or they would do all of their automation using Jenkins or some other container, and they'll be running jobs where they have different configurations in Spark Submit. So I will get to that option a little bit later. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the configuration in when I create the session, and I'm just going to make it optional, so that way you have that option. We're going to create all of these different options within our Spark session when we create our Spark session, and because we're using functional programming, it just makes it easier to do that. And so what we're doing, we're getting away from the long, fluid, procedural code of doing stuff, and we're just going to break it apart into functions, so that way it is more kind of optional on how we want to create our Spark sessions and do different things. And to make it sound a little bit more, to give it a little bit more sense behind it, context behind it, you can remember in one of my earlier tutorials I did a configuration where I communicated with MongoDB, right? So I could write a function for MongoDB, I could write a function for Delta Lake, and then for whatever reason I can have I can interface between those functions. I can call them in as and when I need them, and I've written functions for them, so they're there, right? So I want to do that style of coding, and later on we can expand a little bit more in Spark Submit with Spark Submit. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So I've got my configuration coming from my JSON file. So in my JSON file I've got master, app name, log level. So first of all, let's go into that and let's just add something for Delta Lake. So here it is here, and I'm just going to create something new, a new key value or dictionary, nested dictionary, and I'm going to call that config. And then in my config I'm going to have Delta Lake, and I'll say true. Alright, and I'll go back to classes. And these are the variables which I'm getting all of my sort of JSON configuration stuff from. And I'm just going to put it over here, and I'm going to make some changes here because this can be broken. So in my JSON file, if I didn't have some of those keys, then it will get broken. So let me show you an example of that. So really, to make this safe, I should say if string spark conf in quarks, and I'll have another one which is spark master master in spark conf quark. It's just a bit long-winded, but there is a different way to do this, and it's called get. Now what get does, and also, sorry, here we go. So spark, for example, spark, blah 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 blah, and then at the end of it you have to have else none, right? So you need to have another option, because if it's not in there, then you need to populate that variable with something which is going to be nothing, right? None. And that's just too long-winded, so I just want to shorten my code, and there is something which we can do which is called .get. Now we'll just change these keys to look like this. So we'll have another one, because master is, we've got these nested keys. So within Spark Conference, we've got master, and then if you have more nested keys, you can continue with get. Now what that does, it just it looks for it. If it's not there, it's not going to throw an error. It's just going to populate this variable with none. So you don't have to have this long-winded thing of if it is inside, then else none. You don't have to have all of that. You can just shorten that up a bit. And then because this is nested, then I need to include a dictionary. And yeah, that works. So I'll put a little bit of space there, doesn't matter. But I just want to get rid of that underscore, so I don't really need that. I'll just go back to JSON. I'll get rid of it here. I just like to clean things up a little bit, Alright, so over here, let's do that as well. Dot get and then we'll do the same for our logging. And we'll just put in those dictionaries because we're looking inside of a nested dictionary, so we need to specify that. And so if it's not there, what it's going to do is just going to populate master with none. But what we've got up here, we've got these default values. So if I'm not specifying my own setting for master and my own setting for the app name, then up here I'm just saying, okay, use this default. But I don't need to do that up there. I can just take all of that out and I can just put it down here. So I can set my default here. The default will be none if it's not there, but I am just going to include a default, which is going to be these. And that's how you do it. Alright, so now what I can do, I can just get rid of it from over here. So and this really kind of like just makes things a lot more easier to read. So I can take out those optionals, and this will be a string. Take out that. That will be a string. Where else have I got it? Okay. Take that out. If I don't need to put a underscore, I like to keep things as uniform as possible, because in my JSON file I've now got that as app name, and yeah, just keep it as uniform as possible. Alright, so I think that looks okay. Alright, so alright, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to split this up. So where I've got create session, I'm going to split this up into two parts. One is first going to be the builder, and then the next is going to be the create session. And by splitting it up, if I've got more stuff that I'm doing, more options that I'm doing, then it will make sense in a sec. Sorry, I'm rambling on here, so it will make sense. And just over here, what I need to do, I need to include a new variable for config, which I created, and I'm going to get Delta Lake. Now, I'm not going to specify Delta Lake on the end. I'm just going to grab that in as a dictionary. And the reason for that, if I just go back to the JSON file, I'm going to have loads of settings. So here I've got config, right? And in config, you can have loads. You can have a long list of different configurations. You know, I could be getting data from Delta Lake, have a configuration for Delta Lake. I could be getting data from Mongo. I could be getting data from somewhere else. You know, I could have a load of different stuff, right? But I don't want to pass in like loads of different parameters into my functions. What I want to do, I just want to pass in the dictionary config, and then once I pass it through the different functions, then I can check for the keys inside the functions. So that's why I'm just going to pass in a dictionary. It's, you know, when it comes to functions, it's probably better to be really specific and say I am passing in this particular value rather than a dictionary, because it just makes your function more portable and easier to read, right? It's easier to figure out what input you're putting in there. That's the best, cleanest way of doing functional programming. But because that list can go on and on and on, then I'm just going to pass in a dictionary and just look for particular keys that are relevant to that function. All right, so let's call this config, and I am going to pass in config over here, and I'm going to change that to, because I'm going to split it up into two, I'm going to change that to create builder, and I'll just call that builder, and then Spark will then come from create Spark session, and then I'll pass in builder to Spark to create Spark session, or just call that session, create session, as we did previously. All right, so let's split this up. All right, I'm just going to copy this, and so the first thing I'm going to do is create the builder, and then I also want to pass in config, which is going to be a dictionary, and then the output is going to be a builder, so that is SparkSession.builder. What else? All right, so I can call this builder. Just take that out for a sec. Builder, okay. And create session. So I am going to pass in over here builder, and it will be a Spark session builder, and then the output will be the Spark session. All right. All right. So over here, I can get rid of get or create. Let's just remove that end of line thing over there, and then I'm going to pass in builder to create session. So I'm going to pass in builder. So create session, pass in builder, and then this bit over here, get rid of, and then it's going to be builder.get or create. Now let's put in a conditional. So if is instance builder Spark session, remember that's a comma, put the colon on the end, then we can return builder get or create, which will be a Spark session, so we can get rid of that. Alright, so that's what we want to do. And what else do we need to do? Oh, so we need to make use of this config as well, because that's where we have our setting for delta lake, and right now I've got it to true, right? So I'm going to have it as a boolean, which is false or true, right? Let's pass in config as well. So let's add that config, which is a dictionary. Now on the end of my conditional, I just want to put a and config dot get delta lake equals true. Alright, so because we're using get, by default, if delta lake is not in there, that key is not in there, then the value for this is going to be none, right? And the conditional is, if it is true, then I want you to do the rest. I want you to carry out this statement. So this is .get is a really nice shortened way of getting values from dictionaries. All right. So before I actually start doing anything with that, I'm going to go back to my JSON config, and I'm going to set that to false because I just want to make sure all of my code is working currently before I start introducing Delta Lake. So I can go back to classes, and what have I got here? Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to put in here, I'm going to start, before I test this, to test that it's working normal before I start making changes, I am going to put in a function for Delta Lake. So that will be config Delta Lake. And actually, I'm jumping ahead here. So let's change this a bit. I'm not going to pass in config into this. Let's grab this and put it over here. So I'm jumping ahead a bit. Now over here, I'm not going to pass in the config.delta lake because I'm already going to do it in the function that I'm newly creating just above. Alright, so I'm going to pass in builder, and in builder, then I'm going to create the session. And over here, configure Delta Lake, that's when I'm going to do the configuration for Delta Lake. So within this particular function, I'm going to add to it all of the configurations for Delta Lake. Alright, so let's change this to config Delta Lake. And yeah, so I've got the builder, and builder, let's break this onto different lines. So we don't want it, I'm not going to put it all in one line, it would just be hard to read. It will be config, and there's two things we need to write in here, so just put a end of line. There's two configurations. So the first one will be, and you know I'm terrible with typing errors. Always do typing errors. So I'll type stuff out and I'll just make a mistake and I'm going back and forth, trying to correct it, looking at the errors. So you know what I'm like already. So, but I'm going to do this. So it's going to be Spark. Oh, sorry, it's going to be a string. Spark.SQL extensions io dot delta SQL delta SparkSession extension. Okay, let's double check that quickly. So IO delta SQL delta SparkSession extension. Okay, that looks all right. And one before it, Spark SQL extensions. Okay, now the second line. Spark.SQL.catalog, the American spelling, not the British one. Spark catalogs, yeah, that's the British spelling, so but that's not what we want to do. That's the American one. And then org.apache spark.sql delta catalog dot delta catalog. All right, let's double check that. If I get this right first time, that's a miracle. Yeah, I'm always making mistakes. Like I'm terrible at mistakes. I make mistakes really badly in emails, right? Like I will sit down, I'll write an email, and then I'll send it, and then I'll look at the email that I had written, reread it, and I see loads of mistakes. I'm like, how did I do that? I didn't, I'm not paying attention, but I really do pay attention, but I just can't see it. When I'm writing stuff, I just can't see it. So I think there's something wrong with me, when it comes, I'm always making typos, always, really bad for it. Catalog, Spark catalog, org, Apache, Spark, SQL, delta catalog. So I think that looks all right. Now, the next bit we need to do is we need a function. So that delta Spark library that we imported or downloaded or installed via pip, this is where we need to call it. So I'm going to do a return, and that return is going to be configure. So we need to wrap our builder in a method provided by that library, and it's called configure Spark with delta pip, and then this is where our parameter is going to be builder. Now there's something else I want to put in there. I want to put in else return builder. Alright, so you can see what's happening here, right? I'm always going to pass in my builder. So when I create my builder, I'm always going to pass it in here, right? And in my configuration, if it's set to true, then I'm going to do the configurations for Delta Lake. If it's set to false, it's just going to bypass all this, and it's just going to return the builder. And as I build up more functions for different configurations, I'll just do the same thing. I'll just keep passing it through into these different functions. So I'll just enable things, switch things on and off in my configuration. This is just the way I do it. You could do it a different way, right? You could just use Spark Submit if you want. But this is just showing you different ways of doing stuff, really. In order to get this to work, the Spark configure, let's just copy that. So we configure Spark with delta pip. I need to import that library in. So let's just go over here, and we'll do a import, from delta import this particular method, configure Spark with delta pip. Alright, so let's double check all of this. Let's go to the end of that string, and that would have caused a problem, that end of line, because we don't need it there. Alright, so just going to go through all of that. Let's take a look up here again one more time. Okay, I think that looks alright, so let's just run that. And I'm just going to go over to sales. Oh, sorry, this one over here, my Python script for sales. And I'm just going to grab this, and I'll run that. And I guarantee you I will have an error. Yes, I have an error. So it's saying on line 38 I've got a problem with my indentation. So let's go to line 38 and over here. And I know I'm going to have another error because I always do. There's no way I could have written this perfect. So I just need to change that variable where I took out the hyphen, line 23. Let's go to line 23 and remove that. And I know I'm going to have another error because that's what I'm like. Surprise, surprise, I didn't have another error. And I will have to blow my nose in a bit. I'm trying to hold it back. Hold it in. Alright, I reckon I'm going to blow my nose. I'm going to try and silence it out. Oh, I wanted to do that for ages. Okay, where are we now? Alright, so let's try our configuration for Delta Lake. So let's now switch that on. I'm going to go over to JSON, my JSON file, and I'm going to change that to true. Oh, before I do that, let me just show you what we're getting in to begin with. So let's switch on the print for get settings. This is printing to the screen what we're currently receiving. So I just want to show you what we're receiving first before we make those changes. And I'm going to do something else in here as well. So instead of printing to the screen, I'm going to update our writing to our customized log, which is a JSON file. But first, let's just rerun that. Alright, so this is our Spark session, and we're just outputting all of our settings, so you can see all of the setting stuff here. But we're not going to print to the screen. We're going to create logs. That's the right way to do it. Oh, and by the way, I remembered that I had a mistake in here, which is this. I don't know why I had that in there. Didn't cause an error, but I shouldn't have had it there. Alright, so let's just oh, and if I go back to that, you can see how short that is, and that's gonna be quite big when we create our Delta Lake configuration. But what I want to do, let's just comment that out. I want to update this because I just want to make it a little bit more friendly when we do our debugging. Alright, so I'm going to create a dictionary, and the first key, jumping around again. The first key which I'm going to include is spark.version. So spark.version, it just comes from Spark, which is this instance. If I put .version on the end of it, it will give me the version number. So spark.version. Then the next one is going to be jumping all around the place again. Spark context. Alright, so I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to do that as a dictionary. Instead of outputting it to I'm going to output it as, I'm going to capture the dictionary into a JSON file instead of outputting it into a terminal. Alright, so what was that? That was, I just grabbed this. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. And then the content, I can just copy this from down here somewhere, I think. Let's just go away. Let's go away to the bottom of the file. So yeah, this here, just copy that line, the JSON dumps, and just go back up. All right, so content equals JSON, and then the dictionary which I've created here, that's what I'm going to be dumping as a string. So that way I can create this JSON file. All right, and then down below here, where I actually write the file, write to debug create, I'm just going to copy it. So yeah, copy this one. And put it down here. And just change this. So so as you can remember, paths is a tuple, and there's two things I want to pass in here. I want to pass in the directory, and I want to pass in the file name, full file name. And then the next parameter is going to be the dictionary. So I could just say that's content. Now this bit here, 2 brackets, that specifies a tuple, and within that I want to pass in 2 strings. So the first one is going to be the directory, and my default directory is going to be let's put in parameters because it's a variable within a f string, and the second one will be a f string. Well, maybe not. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so the first one will be self dot debug directory, and then I want to create a new directory within my it's got up here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is self.debug directory. So that's going to be, I'm going to create my directory in temp Spark, and within Spark I'm going to have another one called config, and I'm going to put the information in there. Alright, so and then I could just copy this, and I'll create a file name called SparkSession.builder.json. Alright. Alright, so I'm going to create this. Go to my temp Spark, because I kept on running these tests, everything was working okay, then all of this stuff was still happening. So I now expect a new folder called config, and within that folder I'll have my configuration. So just double check this: config spark session json config. Yeah, I think that looks alright. If it's not alright, I'll get an error, then I'll have to fix it. Let's just rerun that. Seems to be alright. Config has been created. Just let that run. That should be populated now, actually. So here we've got a Spark session. If I open that up, here you can see the version 3.1.2, and then within my Spark context, all my settings, I've got it in here. Now, because I kind of used that indent param when I created the file, then you know, it's pretty, right? It's nice and pretty. And by exporting it to a file is far quicker than printing to your screen. There's something called pprint, a library called pprint, which is pretty print. If you use that, that just slows it all down, and you're still trying to go through the terminal, trying to look for your output, and it's just too much. So I prefer just to do it in a file, just nice and quick. And yeah, it's just a lot easier to kind of like work that way, to be honest, for myself, my opinion. So here you can see, you know, this is all the stuff that we've got. Now let's see how this changes when we do our output using Delta Lake. All right, so right, what am I going to do? Okay, I can get rid of this. Get rid of those lines. Get rid of that. I'm going to go over to my configuration file and now change that to true. Because what we want to do, we want to add all our Delta Lake configuration. So what happened, it just bypassed it all and you know, created our session, but now we want to actually do that. So let's see if that works without any errors. And also to mention, this particular configuration here, what it does, it's going to automatically download the libraries. And that's all this information here. So what it's downloaded is 8 libraries. And if I go to do an ls all, there's a new folder which has been created, which is IV2. So within IV2, it's going to put all of your jars in there, because you know it's all, Spark is based on using the JVM, and then there's files are packaged up as jar files. So within IV2, it has a repository. So like pip, you know, when you're doing stuff in pip, it's going to put it in your pip repository. But when it comes to, you know, jar files and, you know, Scala, jar, all that kind of stuff, it's going to put it into IV2. Because I'm using Maven, I've also got an M2 repository, and so I've got stuff in there as well. So within M2, so between IV2 and M2, you'll have a repository of jar files. Yeah. All right, so that works. That's fine. That's all working. So let's look at our Spark session. So it's now overwritten the one that I had previously and created a new one. And if we open that up, we can see that's now changed. So we've got a load of configurations in here for our Delta Lake. So, you know, Spark files, got a load of stuff in here. What else? Spark submit, Spark jars. It's created Spark warehouse. So Delta Lake has a directory for Spark warehouse, so it's created that. Excuse me. What else? Spark extensions, Delta Spark extensions, that's working. So it's a loads of new output in here. Spark catalog, Delta Lake. So that tells us that our configuration for Delta Lake is working okay. Alright, so I'm going to stop it here, and I'll create a new video for working with Delta Lake. What we'll do is create some parquet tables. Yeah, so I'm going to now just shorten things up a bit, and it's a lot easier for me to do that rather than trying to do everything at once. So yeah, I'm learning, and I'm learning the best way to do things. You know, if you prefer longer videos, I can do longer videos, but I think shorter, snappy ones might be a lot better, to be honest. Alright, so that's your Spark configuration to include Delta Lake. So cheers guys, and catch you in the next session. Peace. I think I'll say peace like they do, you know, peace. Hello. Alright, so I was going to close out this current video like where I stopped, but I just thought instead of doing the next bit, which I'm going to show you in a different video, I should really put it in this one. Just makes it a lot easier and a bit more consistent. So, you know, this is sort of like a Columbo moment, you know, when he puts his foot in the door and says, just one more thing. So that's just my moment of one more thing. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I have sorted out the connection for Delta Lake, and now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to produce a test table. So that will round it up nicely, and then we can start exploring more kind of other use cases as you would with Delta Lake. And then I can just do that in the next video, and I can do like a load of other stuff as well. So I can do multiple different sort of like use cases and different things, and we can build like additional functions and perhaps class objects to handle all of that. Alright, so what am I going to do now? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first make a change to my, well, if I go into the desktop first, get a folder, throw it in, open it up in Vim, and then we can start making some changes. So in jobs we've got sales, and I am going to make some changes within transform data. So one of the last tutorials I did, not this tutorial where I was doing stuff yesterday, but the one before that, part 2, what I did, I created this function in transform data, and then I had create temp tables. So what I was doing, I was creating temporary tables, temporary tables within memory, and Spark allows you to query those tables using SQL, right? So instead of doing everything in memory, I'm going to export to the data lake, but I'm still going to kind of use this function, transform data, to send my tables, the tables I want to produce, from dataframes to Delta Lake. Alright, so for the moment, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to comment that out, and I'll just make a copy of it. And yeah, up here I think we're okay. So we've got transform data, we're sending all of these data frames to transform data, and I'm catching it down here. And what I'm going to do, I am going to create something different. So what am I going to do? Sorry, just having a little think here. So create temp tables. Where have I got create temp tables? So I just need to inspect my code quickly again. Alright, so down here I've got create temp tables. Alright, so I'm going to put in another function. I'm going to call that export result, right? Actually, I can just copy this whole thing and just make changes to it. let's get rid of that print statement there. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Alright, so I'm going to call this export result. And I'm going to send in the same information, so it's going to be exactly like create temp tables, but instead of creating temp tables in memory, as temporary, what it alludes to, the name alludes to, I'm going to actually write that data to our data lake. And transform data over here, I'm going to send it to export result. Alright, I could call it something else, but because even though I'm going to create delta tables, I can call it a function delta table, but I don't really need to, because when you create a delta table, you're going to use the exact same code as you would to produce any sort of table, but you're just going to specify that it's delta, and that's the good thing about it. So I'm just going to call it export result, because I can reuse this function if I wanted to produce any other sort of other format. So that's why I'm just going to call it export result, and I'm going to send all the same information to that. And this bit here I don't need. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to send all of this data to a class object which I'm going to create called export.df. And I'm calling it export.df because I'm just going to send data frames to this object, to this method within my class objects, being class PySpark. And yeah, from data frames I'm just going to produce a table. There's no other data which I'm going to send to it. If I pull in a JSON, a CSV, or whatever it is, I'm first going to convert it to a data frame, and then I'm going to send that data frame to my new class object, and then or method within my current class object, and then produce the delta table. Sorry if I sound long-winded saying the same thing like in several ways. Alright, so let's produce this method, and I'm just going to make a copy of create temp tables. And I'll call that export result. Sorry, export.df. And I'm going to send in the same information, so it's going to be a tuple, but this command is going to be different. So this is the create or replace temp view, and I am going to do a different command. So let's just get rid of that, and let's just do a print here. So let's just make sure we're getting our data through okay, because it's always good just to do random checks first to make sure your code is working fine. And so far that's all I need, right? So it's going to be exactly the same thing. Let's go back over to jobs. Alright, so okay, let's give that a try. Okay, alright, yeah, jobs. And just grab that. Oh, that took a bit longer. So what I'm looking for, I'm just looking for the print out of that tuple data. So I know it's going to work, right? Because I've just basically copied the other function. So, but I always like to just run tests as I go along. Maybe it might not work. I could have done a mistake as usual. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Alright, so this is what I was looking for, and I'll just start working with what I'm sending. So I'm going to, let's just go over to here again, and I'm just going to test one table, to be honest. I'm not going to loop all three of them. So let us let's just copy this. And let's just get one table being sent to begin with. So it's going to be list of df, and it's just going to be the first one, which I think is transaction. So let's just let's give that a try. It's taking a bit long today. Okay, list of df not defined. I think that was a capital O. I beg your pardon. Do that again. Come on, taking ages. I swear yesterday this was running way quicker. Alright, so I've got the transaction data frame coming through, so I'm just going to work with that one and do some tests first. Let's go over to classes, where I've got all the juicy stuff. Alright, so what am I going to do here? So I've got it coming through. Let's have a quick think. Alright, the other thing that I'm going to do here, I need to specify where I'm going to write my table to, right? So within that tuple, I've got the data frame, which is all this bit, and then I've got the table name, which is going to be transactions. So I need a destination to. I need to include a string to say this is where I'm going to write my tables to, and where I'm going to put it for demonstration purposes. I'm just going to write it to temp. I mean, typically you're going to write it to S3, you're going to write it to Azure, you're going to write it to Google, you're going to write it to HDFS, you're going to write it wherever you want to write it, right? On your desktop, wherever you want to put it, right? But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put it on temp, in temp. And then I'm going to create a folder called Delta, and I'm just going to put it in there, right? Alright, so I need to include a string, but what I don't want to do, because I'm going to reuse all of this for other formats, and if I keep including things in here, it's just going to get really kind of like complex, not complex, but it's just too much information in it, and I just want to simplify everything as much as possible. So I'm going to start making use of let's go over here. I'm going to start making use of the parameter config. So here I've got a parameter config, and I'm just passing it as an empty dictionary. So why don't I start making use of that? And this is why I said I like to pass a dictionary, because with the dictionary I'm not just confining myself to one parameter. With a dictionary I can kind of like open it up. So if I've got other stuff that I want to put in there, like additional keys, like if I get, as I'm working along and I'm doing new stuff, new functions or whatever, and I need to have something which I can grab anywhere within my class, then I can just put it inside of self, create a self as part of init, and then it will be available all throughout my class. You'll do this. You can do the same thing in Scala. You don't have to define it as self. It's just automatically there all throughout your classes. And what I'm also going to do, I'm going to recreate this framework in Scala as well. So I will get on to doing that hopefully soon. All right. So let's create a key. So that key, I'm going to call that export, and I'm going to send it to temp, and it's going to be in a folder called Delta. And then I'm going to put it in sales. So you can almost think of sales being like my database, and then whatever I put in sales, so it's going to be transactions, products, customers, they're going to be your tables. Alright, so let's go over to our classes, and in classes here you can see this is where I get config, and then self.config. That's, I'm setting it to self. As you can see, I'm passing self all throughout these methods that I've got in my class, and then I can just output that information. So if I go all the way back down to export df, and then what I can do is just also print out self.config. So it's going to be self.config, self.config, and then I'm going to use get to get that information out. So because good thing is, because I'm putting it in a dictionary, then I can use get. If it's not there, then it's going to the value is going to default to none. So I can use that in certain respects, right? So that way my code doesn't get broken. If I just put it in its own variable, then I haven't declared. If the variable doesn't exist and I try and call on that variable, and because it hasn't been declared already, then it's going to break, right? And then I have to pepper the code with try statements, and it's just ugly, right? So that's why I rather use a dictionary, because I can just use get, and then if it's not there, the key's not there, then it just defaults to none. Right? You'll see what I mean. All right. So so I am looking for export. Right. So I'll just quickly run that so you can see it. Just double check. Yeah. So we just make sure that our strings are dictionaries and strings and stuff are coming through. But when it comes to functional programming, mutable data structures are not really welcomed. Everything should be immutable, but when it comes to use cases like this, I always find dictionaries are just really helpful. Yeah. I mean, you could do it in a different way, but I think I'm being a little bit lazy. I mean, I could use a named tuple. I could do it that way. But then again, I just want to pass things to the class, without having to pass it directly to the function. But then, by doing that, I'm kind of moving away from functional program. But this is the only thing that I'm going to do, which is mutable, just that dictionary. All right, so here's our value there, temp delta cell. So I can start using that. So within this conditional, I'm just going to extend it, and I'm just going to say and self.config. That's all I need to say on my conditional, and self.config. So conditional works left to right. So it's going to look for that condition first, then it will look for that condition, and then lastly it will look for that condition. And because I'm using get, that value is either going to be something or it's going to be nothing. So similar to Scala, you've got some, right? Something or nothing. And this is pretty much the same here. So it's going to be something or nothing. And if it's nothing, then the code is not going to happen. It's not going to run. But if it is something, then it's going to do some stuff down here, right? And I don't have to say if path exists. I don't have to create the path, because what Spark does, or Delta Lake does, is it creates it for you. So if that path, extended path, with nested directories is required, I don't need to write code to create those nested directories. It will just do it for you, which is a good thing. All right, so let's get rid of these print statements over here, because I don't need them. All right, so let's create the string for that path. So the path is going to be fstring, and so it will be, let's grab this, copy this, put that in a variable parameter, and then it's going to be tuple df. Well, I'm copying that one, but I should copy this one here. Put another brackets for variable, and it's going to be 1. So remember, in my tuple, there's two values. One is the data frame itself, and the second one is the name, right? So I'll just go over here. So that one is index 0, sorry, that one is index 0, and that one is index 1. And that's why I'm calling on 1, and I'm going to create a name for that. So let's just run that again, and I'm going to print out the path. And just make sure that's working, that's coming through. Because if I get that wrong, then what's going to happen? It's just going to go into, it's going to create it here in my home directory, because that's like the root of where I currently am. And then I have to go in there and delete it. So I just want to make sure that I've specified that path correctly, it's working correctly. So I'll just do a quick test. Come on, man. Taking ages. Alright, there we go. So temp, delta, sales, transactions. That's all working good. Alright, so get rid of that print statement and we can do the rest of the stuff here. So alright, so let's write the code. And the code is going to be it's going to be df right. And I'm just going to do a quick test first before I start using delta. I'm going to do a test and write a parquet. And parquet, delta is the same as a parquet. It produces a parquet, but there is different meta information included with creating it as delta. When you create just a parquet, then it's just parquet tables, right? But I'll show you what the parquet looks like, and I'll show you the similarities between the code, right? So it's going to be df, right? Dot format, and put in the name parquet because that's the format we want. Dot mode, and for the moment I'm just going to say overwrite. In the next tutorial, what I'll do, I will start developing this export df function a bit, so we can have a few more options on whether we want to overwrite or replace or add to, all that kind of stuff, right? But for the moment, for this one, I'm just going to keep it basic and just say overwrite and save, and we're going to save it in that path. Alright, so I'm going to give that a spin, and within this directory we should see it being created. Alright, so let's do it then. I'll just get that open as well. Let's see if it gets created. So df is not defined. Okay, right. What I wanted to do, I just wanted to create this code as df because I just wanted to be explicit and say, look, this is a data frame. But remember, our data frame is the first value in our tuple, and I'm just going to replace df with that. So that's our data frame. All right. Yep. Give that a spin. Alright, so no errors, so I think I'm alright. And here we've got delta, we've got sales, we've got transactions, and here we've got our parquet tables, right? So that is a parquet file. It's a file which is partitioned, and it has the data, but it is formatted in a parquet format. Let me get rid of that. So I'm just gonna dump the whole thing, because now what I'm gonna do, I'm sorry, should I get rid of that for a sec? Let's just call it something else. Hold on. I go sales transactions, that one. Let's rename that. Just call that delete for the moment because I just want to show you the difference. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change this to delta, and that's all you have to do. It's the same code, and you just change it to delta, and it's going to create a delta parquet table, and we've got all of our session using delta, using the delta wrapper, so we're all good. So we can just do that, and that should be created. Alright, so here we go. Just let that finish quickly. Alright, so let's go in there and take a look. So it's the same thing. So if I go over to this one, here you've got a file, empty file saying, yeah, successfully created. And then in this one, the difference is you don't have that success file, you've got a log file. And if I just open that up, that gives us information on our data. And yeah, this just speeds things up. So it just goes over to this meta file, this index file, and it just says, okay, what's there, without having to query all the data. So yeah, so there's one other thing I want to show you as well. So let me get rid of this one. So I'll say call that delete 2. So we're going to get rid of that as well. And you can do some good stuff with this because now we've created this as a data frame. We've cleaned up our columns, specified column types, whether they're integers, dates, all that sort of stuff. We're using a data frame. We can specify keys within this to say, look, I want to index it or partition it by this particular column, and I'll show you an example of that. So I'm going to create another attribute, and it's going to be, oh, didn't do that. Partition by, and I'm going to specify a column. So we created a column called date of purchase. So if I wanted to split it by like columns, if I wanted to split it by region, or whatever you got, whatever column you got, and you want to split it by that, right? Then you can do it like this. You can just specify it and do another partition, and that just makes your data a lot more nimble. And if you can split your data out as much as possible, then you've got smaller files to work with. And yeah, okay, let's give that a try. Alright, so yeah, let's just give that a sec to finish before we start jumping in, go blazing in. Come on. Another 2 more to go, I think. Come on. Taking ages. Come on, get on with it. Man, that arrow is moving slow. Come on. There we go. Alright. So let's go back again. Alright. So here we are, transactions, and sorry, it's a bit slow when it has to load. Just give it a sec to load. So 2,209 items split by date. Alright, so here we've got these folders, and or you can kind of like, yeah, I was going to say tables, but yeah, it's all the same table, but it's just split by date. So we can go into those, and yeah, so you've got just one file. I mean, the data is quite small, so you've just got one file in there where it's split by date. So I just wanted to show you that bit. Alright, so let's loop the rest of our tables, and what we can do, we can just get rid of that. And I will just empty the trash. I don't need to, but I will. So let's go back over here, and I'm going to go over to my sales, and I am now going to just get rid of this. So first I'll copy this, copy that dictionary, get rid of that, enable that, and then place that empty dictionary with the string for where we're saving the tables. Yep, and I think that's it. So I can loop all of the tables, and I won't create any partitions. So I'm going to get rid of that partition, and we'll just create the raw tables. Because if I create the raw tables and then, you know, the cleaned up raw tables, then yeah, we can just do some stuff with that later on. So get rid of that partitionBy. And let's loop all of the tables. So hopefully that should work with no errors. So I'm just showing you the very basics to get started, and then in the next video we'll do some more sort of more interesting stuff, more sort of like interesting use cases. But I think this is enough in this video to get started. I mean, yeah, I want to probably kind of cut back on doing videos that are too long and just shorten them up. If I do short videos, then I can just release sort of like more frequent ones. But trying to think of everything that I want to do in one session, and it just kind of makes it a little bit too long on delivery, right? Alright, so this is our sales, and we should have customers, products, and transactions. So in customers, that was quite a small bit of data, it's just one file. And I think the same for products as well, so that's just one. And then in transactions, that was about 3. So that's just a quick intro into getting started with Delta Lake. And yeah, so yeah, I think that's about it for now. And yeah, catch you in the next one. All right, guys.